The flow of the road like it belonged, like it had always been part of the scenery, like it had been waiting long before I even showed up. And that's when the road started feeling unfamiliar, even though I had driven it 100 times before. I passed the same police car 3 times, and my mind started replaying the moment like a broken recording, asking questions it didn't want answered, wondering if the officer inside had noticed me too, wondering if the plate numbers were being memorized, wondering if my face had already been cataloged into some invisible system that doesn't make mistakes but also doesn't care about explanations, because systems don't listen to stories. They only listen to patterns, and I just become one. I passed the same police car 3 times, and the 3rd time felt different, heavier, colder, like the air inside the car had thickened into something you could choke on because the radio noise suddenly felt too loud, the speedometer felt too bright, the mirrors felt too honest, and every reflection showed a version of me that looked guilty even though I wasn't, because fear doesn't ask permission before it rewrites your face. I passed the same police car 3 times, and that's when the road stopped being a road and turned into a question. Because roads usually take you somewhere, but this one felt like it was circling me instead, folding back on itself, looping reality in a way that made time feel slippery. Because I could swear I had already passed that gas station, that flickering sign, that cracked billboard, and yet here they were again, like props reused in a low-budget nightmare. I passed the same police car 3 times, and the silence inside my car started screaming louder than any siren, because no lights were flashing, no horn was blaring, no official move had been made, and that was the worst part, because action gives you rules, but waiting gives you imagination, and imagination is far more brutal than reality could ever be. I passed the same police car 3 times, and suddenly every small decision felt like a potential mistake, because signaling too early felt suspicious, signaling too late felt suspicious, changing lanes felt suspicious, staying still felt suspicious, and when every option looks wrong, you realize the trap isn't the road, it's your own awareness of it. I passed the same police car 3 times, and my thoughts drifted to all the stories you hear, but never think will happen to you. Stories that start ordinary and end with someone saying they should have noticed the signs. Stories where people say it felt off, but they kept going anyway. Stories where hindsight becomes the cruelest narrator because it knows the ending before you do. I passed the same police car 3 times, and I checked my mirrors again. Not to see the car, but to see myself, to confirm I still looked normal, still looked like someone who belonged on that road at that hour, still looked like someone who didn't deserve attention. Because sometimes survival feels less about innocence and more about appearing uninteresting. I passed the same police car 3 times, and the 3rd time I noticed something I hadn't before, something so small it almost didn't matter. Except it did, because the angle of the car was slightly different, the reflection on the windshield slightly shifted, and that tiny detail told me this wasn't random movement, this was awareness, because awareness always adjusts. I passed the same police car 3 times, and suddenly the idea of being watched stopped being abstract and started being physical, like a weight pressing against my chest, because it's one thing to imagine eyes on you, and another to feel them measuring you in silence, because silence is how authority breathes when it doesn't need to rush. I passed the same police car 3 times, and I realized fear doesn't come from danger alone, it comes from uncertainty, because if the officer had pulled me over, at least the story would have moved forward, but instead, it lingered, stretched, dragged itself across miles of asphalt like a shadow that refuses to detach from your feet. I passed the same police car 3 times, and the road signs started blurring together, not because I couldn't see them, but because my brain was busy replaying the same thought on repeat, the same sentence looping louder with every mile, asking why, asking how, asking what happens next. Because once your mind locks onto a question like that, it doesn't let go. I passed the same police car 3 times, and in that moment I understood how quickly control is an illusion, because I was driving, steering, accelerating, braking, yet none of it felt like control. It felt like participation in a situation I hadn't agreed to, because true control isn't about movement, it's about predictability, and predictability had left the road a long time ago. I passed the same police car 3 times, and the realization hit me harder than fear itself. The realization that the scariest part wasn't the police car, it was my own reaction to it, because my heart knew something my logic couldn't prove, and when instinct and reason disagree, instinct always speaks louder. I passed the same police car 3 times, and by then it wasn't just a car anymore, it was a symbol, a test, a presence, something that had turned an ordinary drive into a psychological interrogation without asking a single question out loud, because sometimes pressure doesn't need words, it just needs time. I passed the same police car 3 times, and as the road stretched forward into darkness, one thought settled in deeper than the rest, heavier than the fear, sharper than the confusion, the thought that moments like this don't announce themselves as important. While they're happening, they only reveal their weight later. When you look back and realize this was the moment everything changed, the moment you stopped seeing the world as predictable and started seeing it as alert, watching, waiting. I passed the same police car 3 times, and even now, long after the road ended and the engine went silent, the feeling hasn't left, because some experiences don't stay on the road. They follow you home. They sit quietly in the back of your mind, replaying themselves whenever the night is too quiet, reminding you that sometimes the most terrifying journeys don't involve speed, danger, or crime. They involve awareness, repetition, and the unsettling realization that you were noticed before you even knew you were being watched. I passed the same police car 3 times, and after that 3rd pass, the idea of distance stopped making sense, because no matter how far the road stretched ahead of me, it felt like I wasn't moving away from anything. I was orbiting it, trapped in a quiet gravitational pull, where every mile marker felt less like progress and more like confirmation that whatever was happening wasn't finished with me yet. I passed the same police car 3 times, and the 4th time didn't come, which somehow felt worse because absence can be louder than presence. And when something that's been repeating suddenly stops, your mind doesn't relax. It panics, it scans the mirrors harder, it leans forward as if getting closer to the windshield might somehow pull answers out of the dark. I passed the same police car 3 times, and now every shadow on the side of the road looked like a hiding place. Every parked vehicle felt like a decoy. Every reflective surface felt like it was watching me back, because once your brain flips into alert mode, it doesn't care about logic anymore. It cares about patterns, and it starts inventing hem when it can't find enough. I passed the same police car 3 times, and I started questioning the order of events, wondering if I had actually passed it, or if it had passed me without me noticing, because fear messes with memory first. It rearranges timelines, it blurs certainty, it turns confidence into a fragile guess that can shatter with the smallest doubt. I passed the same police car 3 times, and the road signs now felt like warnings instead of directions, because arrows pointing forward don't mean much when forward doesn't feel safe, and backward doesn't feel possible, and staying still feels like surrender to something you don't understand. I passed the same police car 3 times, and my breathing changed without permission, slower but heavier, like my body was preparing for something my mind refused to name, because naming fear gives it shape, and shape gives it power, and I wasn't ready to let it become real yet. I passed the same police car 3 times, and I remembered how people say fear is irrational, how they say if you've done nothing wrong, you have nothing to worry about, but those people have never felt the cold weight of attention settle on them without explanation. They've never learned that innocence doesn't always feel innocent when it's being observed. I passed the same police car 3 times, and the thought crept in quietly, almost politely, the thought that maybe this wasn't about me at all, and that somehow made it worse, because being the target is terrifying, but being collateral is unbearable because collateral damage doesn't get reasons, it just gets consequences. I passed the same police car 3 times, and I started paying attention to details that never mattered before. The hum of the tires, the flicker of the dashboard lights, the faint vibration in the steering wheel, because hyper-awareness turns normal sensation into signals, and signals into warnings. I passed the same police car 3 times, and I wondered if the officer inside was bored, alert, tired, curious, or something else entirely, because not knowing the intention behind a presence is what transforms it into a threat, because intent is the difference between observation and pursuit. I passed the same police car 3 times, and the longer I drove without seeing it again, the more convinced I became that it was still there, just out of sight, because fear doesn't disappear when the object does. It adapts, it hides, it waits for the next excuse to resurface. I passed the same police car 3 times, and the road curved slightly to the left, and that curve felt like a decision I hadn't made, because curves reduce visibility, and reduced visibility feels like vulnerability, and vulnerability is where imagination starts writing endings you don't want to read. I passed the same police car 3 times, and I thought about how quickly normal can turn into unforgettable. How a drive that started without meaning had become something I knew would stay with me long after the destination stopped mattering, because experiences like this don't fade, they embed. I passed the same police car 3 times, and I realized that fear isn't loud at first. It's subtle. It's the tightening of your jaw, the slight ache in your shoulders, the way your foot hovers over the brake longer than usual, because fear prefers to arrive quietly and settle in before announcing itself. I passed the same police car 3 times, and I started imagining explanations, rational ones, harmless ones, stories where this was just coincidence, just timing, just a shared route, because the brain clings to normalcy like a lifeline when the alternative feels too heavy to carry. I passed the same police car 3 times, and yet no explanation felt solid enough. H to stand on, because coincidence stops being comforting when it repeats with precision, and precision implies intention, even when you don't want it to. I passed the same police car 3 times, and the sky seemed darker than it should have been, like the night had thickened, pressing closer to the road, swallowing the edges of everything outside my headlights, because darkness feels different when you're not alone with it. I passed the same police car 3 times, and I wondered if the officer remembered my car as clearly as I remembered theirs, because recognition is a two-way street, and being remembered without context feels like being labeled without consent. I passed the same police car 3 times, and the silence inside the car had turned into something active, something sharp, something that didn't just exist but watched, because silence stops being empty when it's filled with expectation. I passed the same police car 3 times, and I realized how fragile routine really is, how easily it can fracture under the weight of one unanswered question, because routine depends on predictability, and predictability had been quietly removed from the equation. I passed the same police car 3 times, and the idea of pulling over crossed my mind, not because I was told to, but because part of me wanted to confront the unknown head-on, to force the story to move forward, because suspense is unbearable when it stretches without release. I passed the same police car 3 times, and another part of me rejected that idea instantly, because choosing to stop without being asked feels like stepping into a spotlight you didn't know was there, because stillness can be mistaken for compliance or confession depending on who's watching. I passed the same police car 3 times and the road stretched on, indifferent to my thoughts, because roads don't care about fear, don't slow down for it, they don't explain themselves, they just keep going, leaving you to keep up. I passed the same police car 3 times, and with every mile that followed, the experience felt less like an event and more like a threshold, like I had crossed into a version of reality where awareness never fully turns off again. I passed the same police car 3 times, and I understood something then that no warning sign ever teaches you, that safety isn't just about laws or rules or behavior, it's about perception, and perception is never fully under your control. I passed the same police car 3 times, and even though nothing officially happened, even though no lights flashed and no voice spoke my name, the moment had already carved itself into memory, because impact isn't measured by action alone, it's measured by how deeply a moment rewires the way you see the world. I passed the same police car 3 times, and as the road finally began to thin out, as the tension slowly loosened its grip, one truth remained, clear and heavy, that some encounters don't end when you leave them behind, they end when you stop replaying them, and this one wasn't finished with me yet. I passed the same police car 3 times, and after everything that followed, the idea of just a drive no longer existed in my vocabulary, because once a moment like that slips into your awareness, it rewrites how you experience movement, distance, and time, turning something ordinary into a slow-burning question that refuses to cool down. I passed the same police car 3 times, and the memory didn't fade the way small moments usually do. It sharpened. It replayed with higher resolution, like my mind kept zooming in on details I didn't notice the first time. The shape of the headlights, the way the car sat slightly angled, the unnatural stillness that didn't match the flow of traffic. I passed the same police car 3 times, and the more I replayed it, the less I trusted my initial confidence, because certainty is fragile when it's built on assumptions, and assumptions collapse the moment reality starts acting differently than expected. I passed the same police car 3 times, and I realized how deeply we rely on patterns to feel safe, how comfort comes not from knowing everything, but from believing tomorrow will resemble yesterday, and when that resemblance breaks, even slightly, the mind starts searching for meaning like it's oxygen. I passed the same police car 3 times, and that search for meaning turned inward, because when the world stops making sense, the first thing you question is yourself, your memory, your perception, your judgment, wondering if you imagined it, exaggerated it, misunderstood it, because doubt is fear's favorite disguise. I passed the same police car 3 times, and suddenly every future drive felt different in my imagination, because once your brain learns a new possibility, it never unlearns it, and now repetition had joined the list of things that could signal danger instead of comfort. I passed the same police car 3 times, and I thought about how many moments like this happen unnoticed every day, moments where nothing technically goes wrong, yet something fundamental shifts, moments that don't make headlines but still leave marks. I passed the same police car 3 times, and the idea of randomness felt thinner than before, because true randomness doesn't feel intentional, and this had weight, presence, a sense of being anchored to me rather than the road. I passed the same police car 3 times, and I noticed how my body remembered before my mind did, how my shoulders tensed whenever I saw flashing reflections from any vehicle afterward, how my grip tightened without instruction, because the body RDS experiences in a language logic doesn't speak. I passed the same police car 3 times, and the more I reflected, the clearer it became that fear doesn't need confirmation to exist. It only needs possibility, because possibility is enough to keep the imagination awake at night. I passed the same police car 3 times, and I wondered how many people before me had felt this same quiet unease. How many had brushed it off, laughed it away, or carried it silently, because experiences like this don't come with witnesses, only participants. I passed the same police car 3 times, and the memory began blending with others, similar but not identical. Moments of being watched, moments of feeling out of place, moments where the environment felt slightly misaligned, because the mind connects dots even when it shouldn't. I passed the same police car 3 times, and that connection made the world feel subtly different, less neutral, more observant, like the background had shifted from passive to alert. I passed the same police car 3 times, and I realized how power operates quietly most of the time, how it doesn't always announce itself with force, but with presence, repetition, and silence. Because silence leaves room for interpretation, and interpretation breeds obedience. I passed the same police car 3 times, and even though no authority was exercised openly, the psychological effect lingered, proving that influence doesn't always need action, it just needs to be felt. I passed the same police car 3 times, and the idea of being in the clear started to feel meaningless because clearance implies an endpoint, and this experience had none. It just dissolved into memory without resolution. I passed the same police car 3 times, and I began to understand why unresolved moments haunt more than resolved ones. Because closure puts things to rest, but ambiguity keeps them pacing back and forth in your thoughts. I passed the same police car 3 times, and I noticed how the story sounded different every time I told it in my head. Sometimes darker, sometimes lighter, sometimes rational, sometimes unsettling, because memory reshapes itself based on emotion. I passed the same police car 3 times, and that flexibility made it harder to trust the narrative. Because when a memory shifts, you start wondering which version is closest to the truth, and whether truth even matters anymore. I passed the same police car 3 times, and I thought about how easily humans adapt to constant observation. How quickly we normalize being watched, measured, logged, and remembered, until one small disruption reminds us how vulnerable that normalization really is. I passed the same police car 3 times, and the experience stopped feeling personal and started feeling symbolic, like a representation of how modern life works: quiet oversight, unseen systems, patterns tracked without explanation. I passed the same police car 3 times, and suddenly the story wasn't just about a car on a road. It was about awareness colliding with routine, about what happens when the background steps into the foreground. I passed the same police car 3 times, and I realized that the scariest moments aren't the ones where something happens. They're the ones where something almost happens, because almost leaves space for imagination to finish the job. I passed the same police car 3 times, and even now, thinking back, the question remains unanswered, and maybe that's why it still holds power, because unanswered questions don't age, they stay sharp. I passed the same police car 3 times, and the road may have ended, the night may have moved on, but the awareness stayed, quiet, patient, reminding me that sometimes the most unsettling experiences don't chase you, don't stop you, don't confront you. They simply repeat themselves just enough to make sure you notice. The moment I realized something was wrong, it wasn't because of sirens or flashing lights. It was because my instincts spoke before my logic could catch up, and instincts don't shout, They tighten your chest, slow your breathing, and force your attention onto details you were never meant to notice during an ordinary drive. At first, the road felt familiar, predictable, almost boring, the kind of stretch you drive on autopilot while your mind wanders elsewhere. But familiarity can be deceptive because it lulls you into lowering your guard, and that's exactly when awareness hits hardest. There was nothing dramatic about the first encounter, just another patrol vehicle blending into traffic, another shape among headlights and asphalt, easy to ignore, easy to forget, the kind of presence your brain files away as irrelevant within seconds. But when familiarity returns too quickly, it stops feeling familiar and starts feeling intentional, because repetition changes meaning, and meaning changes emotion. By the second time, doubt had entered quietly, not as fear, but as curiosity. The kind that asks harmless questions like why routes overlap or how timing lines up so perfectly. Questions that don't alarm you until they start stacking on top of each other. The third realization didn't arrive as a thought, it arrived as a physical sensation. A tightening grip, a sudden awareness of posture, breathing, speed, mirrors, because the body always reacts before the mind decides how to explain it. That's when the drive stopped being passive and became participatory, because once you're aware of being observed, even the possibility of it, every movement feels like a statement, every decision feels like evidence. Silence became heavier than noise because no action was taken, no signal was given, no instruction was issued, and that lack of response created a vacuum where imagination rushed in to fill the space. Waiting is more powerful than confrontation because confrontation has rules, but waiting has none. And when nothing happens long enough, your mind starts preparing for everything at once. The road didn't change, but my relationship with it did, because distance stopped meaning escape and started meaning delay, like every mile was stretching time instead of resolving it. The mirrors became uncomfortably honest, reflecting not just vehicles behind me, but my own uncertainty, my own attempts to look normal, calm, unremarkable, as if appearance alone could influence outcome. Normal actions began to feel performative, signaling, braking, maintaining speed, all of it suddenly layered with intention, because once you believe you're being watched, you stop acting naturally and start acting strategically. There's a specific kind of fear that doesn't come from danger itself, but from not knowing whether danger exists at all. Because uncertainty keeps the nervous system engaged without offering relief. The absence of confirmation became the loudest presence in the car because nothing disproved my concern and nothing confirmed it either, leaving me suspended in a moment that refused to conclude. I became aware of how quickly power asserts itself without force, how visibility alone can influence behavior, how attention changes posture, how observation reshapes choice. The drive continued, but mentally I was no longer moving forward. I was looping, replaying the same few moments, scanning them for meaning, searching for clues that might explain why something felt off without actually being wrong. Time slowed in a way that felt artificial, stretched thin by awareness, because attention elongates moments the same way fear does. Every passing light, every reflective surface, every shadow along the roadside felt amplified, not because they were threatening, but because my brain was no longer filtering information, it was collecting everything. Hyper-awareness is exhausting, because it removes comfort, replaces routine with vigilance, and forces you to stay present in a moment you want desperately to pass. The most unsettling realization wasn't about authority or enforcement, it was about vulnerability, about how quickly a person can feel exposed without explanation, and how little it takes to disrupt the illusion of control. There's a point where coincidence stops being comforting and starts demanding interpretation, and interpretation is where fear grows roots. I wanted the moment to end decisively, either through confrontation or dismissal, because resolution, even negative resolution, is easier to process than uncertainty stretched thin across miles. But the road offered neither clarity nor closure, only continuation, only movement without meaning, only distance without direction. The experience didn't escalate, and somehow that made it heavier, because unresolved tension doesn't fade, it settles. By the time the drive ended, nothing had officially happened. No interaction, no event, no record. Yet something fundamental had shifted, because perception had been altered. Moments like this don't announce their importance when they occur. They reveal it later, when ordinary situations start triggering extraordinary awareness. Long after the engine stopped, the feeling stayed, not as panic but as alertness, a low-level readiness that hadn't existed before. That's how subtle encounters leave the deepest impressions, not through action, but through implication, not through force, but through presence. And once you've felt that kind of attention, once you've experienced how repetition reshapes reality, you don't return to the version of yourself that drove without noticing. The memory didn't settle the way normal experiences do. It hovered, unresolved, like a background process running quietly in my head, consuming attention without ever asking for it. Because moments built on uncertainty don't conclude, they linger. What disturbed me most was how quickly my perception recalibrated, how the baseline of normal shifted without warning, because once you become aware of observation, imagined or real, neutrality disappears and everything gains weight. Driving stopped being an unconscious act and became a sequence of deliberate choices, each one evaluated not for safety or efficiency, but for how it might be interpreted by an unseen observer. I became aware of how often we rely on invisibility to feel free, how much comfort comes from believing we blend into the background, unnoticed, unremarkable, unrecorded. That belief cracked quietly, not shattered, but fractured just enough to let doubt seep in. And doubt is harder to repair than fear because it doesn't announce itself. The road itself felt unchanged, yet somehow compromised, like a familiar room rearranged slightly in the dark, where nothing is technically wrong but nothing feels right either. My thoughts kept circling the same question without landing anywhere useful, not asking what happened, but asking what could have happened, because possibility is where anxiety does its best work. I noticed how silence changes texture when you're alert, how it stops feeling empty and starts feeling loaded, as if it's holding something back on purpose. The absence of interaction created a strange imbalance, because authority without expression leaves no cues to read, no rules to follow, no reassurance to lean on. I realized then how deeply humans depend on feedback, how unsettling it is to act without knowing whether those actions are being acknowledged or ignored. The experience sharpened my awareness of systems, of structures that function quietly in the background, watching, recording, waiting, not out of malice, but out of design. It made me question how often we mistake calm for safety, how easily we equate lack of response with lack of interest. The more I reflected, the clearer it became that the power wasn't in the vehicle or the uniform. It was in attention itself, because attention alters behavior long before any authority is exercised. I caught myself adjusting things that never mattered before: posture, expression, timing, as if subtle changes could influence an outcome that hadn't even been defined. That kind of self-monitoring is exhausting, because it turns every moment into a performance and every movement into a message. The unsettling part wasn't feeling watched, it was realizing how quickly I adapted to the idea of it, how naturally vigilance replaced comfort. That adaptation scared me more than the experience itself, because it showed how easily humans reshape themselves under perceived scrutiny. I started to see similar patterns elsewhere, in crowds, in public spaces, in moments where awareness suddenly spikes without explanation. Once you notice that shift, you can't unsee it, because awareness is cumulative. It stacks, it builds, it compounds. The encounter didn't create fear in the traditional sense, it created caution. A quieter, more persistent state that doesn't fade when the threat disappears. Caution doesn't scream, it whispers reminders, it nudges behavior, it stays close. I realized how little it takes to disrupt a sense of autonomy, how visibility alone can bend routine into compliance without a word being spoken. The drive ended, but the lesson didn't. Because lessons rooted in perception don't need repetition to stay alive. Even now, in moments that should feel neutral, I feel the echo of that awareness, subtle but present, like a shadow that adjusts itself based on where the light falls. Nothing dramatic occurred, no confrontation, no consequence, yet the impact was undeniable, because transformation doesn't require spectacle, it requires realization. That realization changed how I move through space, how I interpret patterns, how I trust coincidence. It taught me that some experiences don't arrive to frighten you, they arrive to recalibrate you. And once recalibrated, you don't return to baseline, you operate at a new level of alertness, quieter, sharper, less naive. The road, the car, the night, all of it became secondary to the shift that happened internally, because the most significant changes rarely announce themselves out loud. They settle in silently, reshape perspective, and wait patiently to reveal their influence over time. That's how a simple drive becomes something else entirely, not because of what happened, but because of what it made you notice.